So there we were at Ryan's birthday party, and during his speech he made a little joke about how he settled for me. Everybody burst out laughing except me. Now I don't even know how to explain what I'm feeling. It's like something in our marriage just shifted all of a sudden, and I can't tell if I'm blowing things out of proportion or if I finally opened my eyes to something that's been there all along. My name's Megan. I'm 37 and I've been married to Ryan, who's 41, for close to 7 years. We met through friends, dated for a couple of years, and when he popped the question I truly thought I hit the jackpot. Ryan was always that guy everyone seemed drawn to, smooth, full of confidence, always lighting up the room. He had a way of making folks feel seen and heard, like he really got them. I've never been the loud or flashy type. I've always leaned more toward quiet talks and meaningful connections than big crowds. But with him I felt noticed, like I mattered most, even in a room full of people who practically worshipped him. At least that's what I used to think. Now I can't help but wonder if I mistook his charm for something deeper. Maybe I fell for the feeling he gave me in the moment and didn't pay enough attention to how he actually treated me over time. Anyway, this all kicked off just last weekend. Ryan had his heart set on celebrating big, like he always does. No small dinners or quiet evenings for him. He wanted a grand party. Private room in a fancy restaurant. More than 30 guests, open bar, the works. We had both our parents there, his brothers, my sister, and a mix of old friends from all corners of our lives. That kind of scene is Ryan's sweet spot. He comes alive at those kinds of events. I had spent weeks making sure everything was just right. The venue, the food, even the decorations were picked to strike the perfect balance between classy and personal. He didn't ask me to do all that, but I wanted to. Because when you care about someone, you go the extra mile. And to start with, it all seemed to be going fine. Folks were catching up, drinks were flowing, and everyone was having a good time. Ryan was bouncing around the room, chatting folks up and soaking in the attention. I stayed mostly with my sister and a couple close friends, keeping an eye on things while enjoying myself too. Then dinner wrapped up, and someone clinked their glass for a toast. Without missing a beat, Ryan stood up. He lives for moments like that. Any chance to talk, get laughs, and soak in the spotlight is right up his alley. I watched him with a smile, thinking he'd launch into one of his usual feel-good, slightly tipsy speeches about how lucky he felt and how grateful he was. And for a bit, that's exactly how it went. But then he turned toward me. "And of course, I've got to thank my beautiful wife, Megan," he said, raising his glass in my direction. I smiled, bracing for something sweet. Then came the grin. The most patient woman on the planet. I mean, let's be real. I definitely settled. People laughed. Like really laughed. His youngest brother nearly spit out his drink. My dad chuckled. His mom had to cover her mouth, she was laughing so hard. Meanwhile, my face was burning. My stomach twisted up. I managed to smile through it. Ryan, either clueless or just high on the attention, didn't slow down. I mean, come on, we all know it. I was the catch here. Megan had to snag me before someone else did. More laughter, a few loud groans like folks were in on the joke. My sister shot me a look that said she didn't find it funny either, even though she tried to smile. Someone across the room called out, "Wow, dude," half laughing, half cringing. I wished the floor would just open up and swallow me whole. I think Ryan noticed something on my face because he waved it off with a grin. "Oh, come on, babe, you know I love you. You landed the best deal of your life." And that was it. That was the moment something inside me clicked. Before that, maybe I'd have brushed it off, told myself it was just a dumb joke. Nothing to get worked up over. But looking at him right then, I didn't see someone who'd slipped up or realized he'd gone too far. I saw a man who meant every word. And suddenly it hit me, this wasn't the first time. He'd always done this, just in smaller ways. Thinking back, I guess the signs were always there. Over the years, Ryan would make these offhand remarks. How lucky I was to have him, how I'd really scored by landing him. He always talked about our marriage like he was the grand prize in it. He'd joke about my cooking, my clothes, how quiet I was at parties, not in a sweet, teasing way, but in a way that made it clear he thought I was the one who had to keep up, like he was doing me a favor. I used to brush all that off. But sitting there at that party with everyone laughing and me being the punchline, something inside me just shut down. I don't remember much after that. I went through the motions, smiled when I had to, laughed when it was expected, pretended everything was fine. But my thoughts were racing the whole time. By the time we got back home, Ryan was still riding high. He plopped down on the couch, kicked off his shoes, leaned back like he didn't have a care in the world. "What a night," he said. "You really nailed it, babe." I didn't answer right away. I was standing near the bedroom door, gripping the doorknob so hard it hurt. Then I asked him, "Do you actually believe that?" He looked confused. "Believe what?" I said. "That you settled." He laughed like it was the most ridiculous thing I could have asked. "Oh, Megan, come on. I didn't mean it like that. It was a joke." I looked at him again. "But do you believe it?" He sat up a little, letting out a breath like I was overreacting. "Don't do this, Megan. It was just a speech. Everyone was having fun. You're turning this into something it's not." I didn't argue, just nodded and walked off to bed. But sleep never came. I lay there staring up at the ceiling, my chest tightening like I couldn't catch my breath. And at some point while Ryan snored next to me, I made up my mind. There was no crying, no dramatic moment. I just got up, pulled out a suitcase and started packing. I moved quietly so I wouldn't wake him. Took just the basics: ID cards, a few outfits. I took off my wedding ring and left it sitting there on the dresser. Then I grabbed my keys, walked out the door and called for a ride. Ended up checking into a hotel. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. At first the messages were light. "Hey, where'd you go? You okay?" But when I didn't reply, the tone shifted quickly. "Megan, this isn't funny. Call me." I sat on that stiff hotel bed, phone lighting up over and over, each buzz tightening something in my chest. But I didn't read the messages. Not yet. The city was still, the kind of still you only get around 2 or 3 in the morning. My mind just kept going. It hit me what I'd done. I'd left. No fight, no explanation. Just gone. And yeah, part of me felt a pang of guilt. I could already picture him pacing the house, probably pulling at his hair, trying to piece it all together. But another part of me, the part that had been slowly dimming in that marriage, felt something else, something I didn't expect. Relief. I let out a shaky breath, locked the phone and dropped it onto the nightstand. I needed time to think. I didn't tell anyone where I went. Not my sister, not my parents, not even Elizabeth, my best friend. Because if I did, I'd start getting texts, calls, advice, opinions. Some would tell me to go back. Others would say I needed a lawyer right away. I wasn't ready for either. I just needed space. For hours I lay there, listening to the steady hum of the air conditioner, eyes fixed on the ceiling, replaying that dinner in my head. Every laugh, every side-eye glance, every word Ryan said, like I should have been grateful just to be with him. Maybe he'd always felt that way. And maybe I'd just been too deep in it to realize. When morning finally started creeping in, my phone was quiet. Either he'd given up for the night or figured he'd wait it out. I turned on my side, heavy with exhaustion, but still couldn't fall asleep. That's when a new thought slipped in. One I hadn't let myself think until then. What now? Walking out felt like a move toward freedom. But now that daylight was creeping through the blinds, I had to face it. I didn't have a plan. I couldn't stay in a hotel forever. I had a job, a home, our home. My stuff was all still there. So what was I supposed to do next? I was staring down at my phone, wondering whether to call Elizabeth or maybe my sister, when the screen lit up again. This time the call wasn't from Ryan. It was from his mother. Of course it was. She had always found her way into our marriage, not in a sweet, caring kind of way, but more like she thought Ryan was some kind of rare gem and I was just lucky to have him. I let it ring. Then came the voicemail notification. I shouldn't have, but curiosity got the better of me. "Megan," she began, her voice tight and clipped like always, that tone she used when she was trying to sound polite but really wasn't. "I assume you're done with whatever childish tantrum this is and you'll be coming home soon. You've embarrassed Ryan enough. Call me back." That was it. No, are you okay? No, what happened? Just orders. Just more of the same. I stared at the phone in my hand, then deleted the message without a second thought. But the truth was settling in fast. Ryan wasn't going to let this slide. He wasn't going to let me leave without making it a whole thing. Not because he loved me, but because his pride couldn't handle it. And his family, they'd be right there with him, ready to make sure I knew just how big a mistake I was making. I needed a plan. Finally, I did what I should have done hours ago. I texted Elizabeth. "Me, you up?" I sat there, waiting, nerves crawling up my spine. For a second I thought maybe she was asleep or maybe she'd see the message and not answer. But then the typing bubbles popped up. "Elizabeth, oh." What happened? I hesitated. Then typed back. Me, I left Ryan. There was a long pause, then another message. Elizabeth, where are you? Me, hotel. Don't tell anyone. Elizabeth, I'll be there in 20. I let out a breath I hadn't even realized I was holding. If there was one person I could count on, it was her. She'd never liked Ryan. Not openly, but it was there in the way she chose her words around him, in the way she didn't laugh at his jokes, in the way once, after a few too many glasses of wine, she told me she didn't think he was capable of real kindness. I didn't believe her back then. Not fully. Maybe I didn't want to. I stayed sitting on the edge of the bed, still staring at my phone even after the messages stopped. 20 minutes isn't a long time, but when you're sitting alone with your thoughts, it might as well be forever. The room was quiet, except for the hum of the air conditioning. I felt like I wasn't really in my own body, like I was watching someone else go through all this. My suitcase was still on the floor, half-zipped. I hadn't packed much, just the basics. Enough to get by a couple days. But reality was coming in fast now. I hadn't figured out anything past leave. I ran a hand through my hair and let out a long breath. Ryan hadn't tried calling again yet, but I knew he would. He wasn't the type to let anything go. He needed control, whether he realized it or not. Then came a knock at the door. 3 short taps. I froze. Then walked over and looked through the peephole. It was Elizabeth. She was wearing that big, comfy sweater she always wore when things got serious. Hands stuffed into her pockets, I scanning the hallway like she was already bracing for trouble. I opened the door and let her in without saying a word. She stepped inside, gave the room a quick once-over, and then looked at me. Her face was calm, unreadable. Okay, she said, shutting the door behind her. Start from the beginning. I sat down on the bed. She took the chair by the window, crossing her legs, just watching me. For a second, I couldn't find the words. Everything in my head made sense, but saying it out loud? That was harder. I finally managed. It was his birthday party. She nodded like she'd already guessed. What happened? I took a breath. He gave a speech. Said he settled for me. Like it was a joke. Her jaw tightened. I didn't need to say more. She already knew. And they all laughed, I added, my eyes on my hands as I twisted the edge of the blanket in my fingers. I don't know why that was the moment it hit me, but it did. Elizabeth didn't jump in right away. She just stared at me, her eyes dark with something I couldn't name. Then she shook her head. He's always been like this, Megan. I frowned. What do you mean? You know what I mean. Her voice was quiet, steady. You've always been the one trying. Always the one adjusting. Making sure he's happy. Covering for him when he said something awful. And the worst part? He never even noticed. I wanted to push back, tell Elizabeth it wasn't that black and white, but I couldn't. The words just stuck in my throat. Because deep down, I knew she was right. I'd spent years brushing off Ryan's comments, telling myself his jokes were harmless. That every couple had rough patches. That I was being too sensitive. But sitting there now? I wasn't so sure anymore. Elizabeth let out a long breath and rubbed her temples. Okay. So what's the plan? I shook my head. I don't know. She looked at me carefully. Do you want to leave for good? Or are you still waiting to see what he does? That was the real question. And I didn't have an answer. As much as I wanted to say I was done, a small part of me was still hanging on. Maybe hoping for an apology. Maybe just wanting proof that I hadn't wasted all those years on someone who never really saw me. I don't know yet, I said softly. Elizabeth didn't press me. She just nodded. All right. First step, we get you somewhere safe. You're staying with me. I hesitated. What if he shows up? She raised an eyebrow. Then he better be ready to limp away. That actually made me laugh. Just a little. I nodded. Okay. Your place. Elizabeth didn't waste any time. She grabbed my suitcase, slung her purse over her shoulder, and held the door open. Come on. We'll figure out the rest later. I paused just a second, then stepped out into the hallway. The air felt lighter, like I'd left a piece of the weight behind in that hotel room. As we drove, she kept things light, talked about work, mutual friends, anything but Ryan. I was grateful. I didn't have the energy to talk about it yet. I just needed space to breathe. By the time we got to her apartment, I felt completely drained, mentally, emotionally, physically. You can crash in the guest room, she said, locking the door behind us. And don't even try to argue. Stay as long as you need. I murmured a thank you, but she waved me off. Sleep first. We'll talk in the morning. I tried. I really did. But sleep didn't come easy, because I knew this wasn't over. The next morning I woke up to a mess of messages. Not from Ryan this time, but from his brother, mutual friends, and of course his mother. I didn't open them. Not right away. But I could see enough in the previews. Derek wrote, "You're blowing this out of proportion." One of those fake friends, Tina, said, "Ryan's a mess. Just talk to him." And his mother? "I always knew you were selfish, but I never thought you'd humiliate my son like this. You'll regret it." I stared at my phone, gripping it so hard my knuckles turned white. Selfish? Humiliating him? I took a long breath and forced the anger back down. I could feel that old version of me creeping in, the one who'd question herself, who'd wonder if they were right. But not this time. Ryan had been humiliating me for years. Quietly. Casually. And the worst part? He never even realized it. He just assumed I'd always be there. Always smoothing things over. Always staying. He was wrong. Elizabeth wandered into the kitchen, still yawning, and poured herself some coffee. "How bad is it?" she asked, nodding toward my phone. "Predictably awful," I said. She rolled her eyes. "Of course it is. They're freaking out because they lost their favorite doormat." I let out a small snort. "I don't think I was ever their favorite anything." "Fair," she said, sipping her coffee and leaning on the counter. "So what's next?" That was the question. And just like that I knew. I looked up at Elizabeth and a slow smile crept onto my face. I think it's time Ryan really understands what it means to be without me. Over the next few days, I stayed quiet. I didn't respond to Ryan. I ignored the messages from his family and friends. Let them sit there. Let them wonder. And Ryan? He went through the whole routine. First, he was apologetic. Said he didn't mean it like that. That I was overreacting. Then he got mad. Called me dramatic. Selfish. Cruel for walking out. And when that didn't work, the guilt trip started. "After everything I've done for you," he wrote. Every message was another attempt to drag me back. To make me question myself. But I didn't. While Ryan was busy panicking about losing me, I was quietly getting my ducks in a row. I met with a lawyer. Nothing dramatic, just careful, quiet steps. While I was at it, I had someone look over my finances. See, Ryan had always made it a point to remind me he was the breadwinner. That without him I'd struggle. That I needed him. What he didn't know. I had savings. I had investments. And most importantly, I had something he'd never really valued: patience. Ryan was careless with money. Always chasing some new gadget or upgrade or idea. Me? I planned. I saved. I built a safety net, just in case I ever needed it. Well, now I did. By the time I finally texted Ryan back, I was ready. I agreed to meet him at our house. Not because I was second-guessing anything, but because I wanted him to see face-to-face that this time was different. He was slouched on the couch when I walked in, running his hands through his hair like he hadn't slept. The second he saw me, relief washed over his face. "Megan," he said, standing up. "Thank God. Listen, I held up a hand. "I'm not here to talk about us, Ryan." He blinked. "Then why?" I set a folder on the table. "Calm. Steady. What's this?" he asked. "Divorce papers." He went pale. "What?" "You said once you settled for me," I said, tilting my head just a little. "So I'm fixing that for you." He just stared at me, blinking like he couldn't believe what I'd said. "Megan, come on. You don't mean this." "I do," I said. "I've already spoken to a lawyer. Everything in there is fair. More than fair." He opened his mouth, then shut it again. He looked like someone had pulled the floor out from under him. "You're really doing this?" "Just like that." I gave a small smile, but it didn't reach my eyes. Just like that. I saw it hit him then. The reality. The loss. He'd never really thought I'd leave. Not for real. That was the moment he knew he'd pushed one too many times. I turned to go but paused at the door. "Oh, and Ryan?" I said, voice calm. "If you or your family try to make this ugly, just remember I know where all the skeletons are buried." He froze. His face twisted. He knew exactly what I meant. And with that I walked out. Didn't look back. It's been a couple weeks now, and I'll be honest, it feels like I can breathe again. Lighter. Free. I didn't even realize how much of my life had been spent worrying about Ryan's moods, or what sarcastic thing he'd say next. He, on the other hand, is not handling it well. After the shock wore off, the texts started again. Not apologies. Demands. First it was, "Let's talk like adults," which really meant, "Let me talk you out of this." When I refused, he got mad. told me I was ruining his reputation, that I was making a huge mistake. His mom's been relentless. Long messages about how I'm throwing away a good man and humiliating the whole family. Somehow I'm the ungrateful one now. And mutual friends? Some have reached out to say they support me. A few. But others, well, they've made it clear whose side they're on. I've been called cold. Dramatic. Like this was some snap decision. Like I didn't spend years being chipped away at by his comments and indifference. So I've got to ask, am I the a-hole? For walking away without warning? For not entertaining his excuses this time? For finally choosing myself after being treated like background noise in my own life? I'd really like to know what you think.